Hey everyone, Coomber Radio, episode number 258, and this is a sad day. It's a sad day because it is mine and Rachel's last ever podcast together. Why? Well, I feel that the show needs to evolve in its own way, given, in a kind of certain time frame. I think it just needs to shift and meander. And if you remember back in the early days, I think it was episode 101 to episode 120, we had Anna, and Anna obviously had a certain way, and she had a certain expertise, and she was great. And then the show moved to be with Rachel, and we again took another little path. And I just feel that the show is at that time. And also, it seems to be a good time for Rachel. Rachel's moving out to Dubai. There's new things for Rachel. She's looking at new opportunities. And I did a show a little while ago with Tom Bainbridge, which I thought is great. And Tom is obviously an integral part of our education here at Body Type Nutrition and just what we do. And I thought, it's time for Tom to show his brilliance, and he's got a very analytical research mind, and we want to delve a bit more into some kind of evolving research sides of nutrition, while still keeping it light and hopefully a little bit entertaining. But yeah, that's what's happening. Rachel, you sat very quietly while I've gone on and basically said goodbye.
Well, let's just tell it how it really is. You actually dumped me because Tom is better looking.
He does have a very good beard. I'd like to stroke it.
Okay, let's not go there. I haven't seen Tom's beard, so I can't pass comment. But it has been a very fun couple of years doing this podcast, and yeah, I think for Ben and I, we've had a lot of banter going back and forth on WhatsApp over the past sort of couple of weeks or so as we've been discussing this last podcast and everything. And, kind of looking back, I remember doing my very first podcast with you when you had me on as a guest. And I remember I think it was 2013, late 2013. And I was in Melbourne, and I had just come off the back of a shoot, and I was really hungry, and I actually... I didn't have time to eat before our first podcast, and I think that you caught the proper ranty side of me on that podcast. But luckily, touch wood, it was received well, and then our podcasting blossomed from there. But it has been an amazing journey, and moving on to new things really. I am relocating to the Middle East and be over in Dubai. We're going to be making our move in July. My family is already over in the UAE, and it's the third business now that I've set up, and we'll be consolidating everything over in the Middle East. So that's very exciting. It's been an awful lot of work to get there over the past couple of years, and it's certainly been a people growing machine for both myself and David, and it's been very exciting. So be looking forward to seeing where the podcast is going to go next.
Indeed. When you think about it, it's still been 2 years with having you on the show. As it is a long time. It is a lot of content, and I think me and Rachel always discuss this. It can be quite tough in our job to think of new things to say and new angles, and that's why Rachel's started 3 different businesses in fitness. Her work is evolving, and I feel, because I'm basically a very opinionated person. I feel that I've got a lot to say and a lot of value to say. So I'm happy to talk about people having a lack of sleep from 10 different angles. But, with a podcast, you do have to keep looking to reinvigorate it and give it a new little lease of life and give it a new little angle. So that's all this is. And hopefully I've picked some stellar questions for our final hurrah together.
Shall we go? Are you ready?
Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay, so this first question is from Charlotte. Hi guys, before I ask away, I just wanted to say thank you so much for providing the podcast. I look forward to listening to it every week, and I really enjoy every single episode. I also recently did Ben's Fat Loss for Life, and I learned so much about nutrition and myself that I can carry forward for the rest of my life. Thank you again. My question is about plant-based diets. I have recently watched the standard This Turned Me Vegan documentaries, including Food Inc. and Cowspiracy. And this has made me feel really weird about eating meat. I watched the films out of interest as I never considered a vegetarian or a vegan diet before, and now I don't feel that I can morally eat meat due to environmental and animal cruelty factors. I'm now also considering cutting down on dairy products due to the treatment of cows and also its effect on the digestive system. I've read that it can be very hard to digest and can have a huge effect on hormones, etc. As I'm sure everyone has heard, there are also concerns as to whether we actually need dairy in our diets, as it's made for cows and not humans. I wanted to get your professional opinion on plant-based diets in general and any benefits and disadvantages they have. To give you some context, I'm a 27-year-old female who has recently been diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, and so that I'm intrigued to find out about what a plant-based diet could potentially do to my hormone levels. I eat healthily and work out 3 to 5 times a week, depending on shift patterns. I'm not overweight, but as most females, I would like some fat loss. I would welcome some fat loss, but I'm more concerned about my overall health, energy, and my ability in the gym and life in general. Thank you in advance and keep up the amazing work, Charlotte.
So this is a great question because I think a plant-based diet or vegan eating is very on trend at the moment. And I think in the fitness industry, you only have to often look at London and what London is doing as a general theme. And there's more like vegan cafes kicking up and there's more vegan meal prep companies. And it's generally being adopted by an awful lot of people. And obviously, rightly so, people are asking questions. Now, Netflix documentaries have increased the awareness of things like Food Inc. documentary, Cowspiracy, and that's absolutely cool. Now, there's a lot of different points in this email. Now, firstly, for me, vegan eating is very personal in terms of its ethical and moral reasons of why you would do it. I personally, and this is just me, I do not have a problem eating animal protein or consuming dairy. I'm happy with the environment. I'm happy with the process that an animal goes through, and it's my opinion that I feel it's a very natural thing. We are hunters, we are gatherers, we've consumed, in my opinion, this food for a long period of time. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some areas of food manufacturing that are not good. There are some companies that don't treat animals well. There are some companies, or hopefully there's a lot of companies, especially in the UK, that do things properly. UK welfare standards is a mile ahead of America. A lot of these documentaries are filmed in America and they do have appalling food standards. They have massive feeding farms that are just thousands, hundreds of thousands of animals across, states in America. So you have to please appreciate that we do live in a different food environment in the UK. Now, the other part of this equation is, okay, so is a vegan or plant-based diet better for you health-wise? Now, currently, a mixed omnivorous diet, so a bit of meat, lots of plants, bit of dairy, whole grains, all that kind of stuff, just normal nutrition. There's no evidence to show that is problematic. Now, if you take any diet and make it any more extreme, there's potentially problems. So, for example, some vegans cite as a reference the China Study book. Now, this is a book that really kind of extrapolated casein as a protein source and said, right, when you eat a lot of casein, it's basically kind of a bit bad. Now, move aside the fact that a lot of this science was bad in the first place. Move into the frame that not many of us eat a diet where casein is the predominant protein source in our diet. The predominant protein sources in my diet are, they're varied. Chicken, beef, pork, eggs, casein as well. But I'm not eating a diet of, 20% protein in the diet that is casein. So that doesn't actually happen. So I'm very dismissive of the China study because for me it's very flawed in its scientific approach. And when we look at recent research, there is a lot of kind of data to disrepute that. Now, before I go on to kind of like the hormone stuff, I can imagine Rachel sitting there kind of biting something but has something to say.
Look, I really don't have much to add to that. Like, I'm a steak girl, you know. I'll be honest with you. I very rarely see very well. Let's talk about vegans. I think I probably, in my time consulting with in health and fitness, I've maybe seen one vegan who was genuinely healthy, like as in like, you know, good blood work, had lots of energy, um, good skin, felt good, etc., etc. One, and that's only because he spent a lot of time studying what was in each food so that he could have all of the right nutrients in every single meal. Um, Vegetarians, again, same thing. Like I know like plenty of unhealthy vegetarians when they think that they're having a healthier diet because they're not eating meat, and actually nothing could be further from the truth. However, I've seen more vegetarians who are genuinely healthy. They have good energy levels, the skin is good, digestion is good, and all that kind of stuff. But they eat a lot of fish, they eat eggs. I encourage my clients who are vegetarian to eat goose eggs, duck eggs, you know, all sorts of varieties of different fish and seafood. So I think if you get your protein sources from other things like that, then fine, it can be done. I'll be honest with you, like I have a really tough time, and you know, coaching clients. I actually don't coach clients now who are vegetarian unless they are prepared to eat a lot of seafood. So I tell you why, because vegetarianism and vegan is a super specialist area. That is not my area of nutrition. I know you guys at BTN have got specialist coaches in who specialize in vegan, but you know, a lot of my clients when they apply to work with us will say, "Oh, but I'm a vegetarian," and I'll say, "Look, you do understand that unless you're prepared to change this, this, and this in your diet, I can't work with you because I can't get you the results that you're after based off the fact that A, I have no interest in researching vegan and vegetarian diets, and B, I don't know much about it. So quite frankly, I'm not the expert, so
Yeah.
somebody else is. All I can say is that, in my opinion, like I think there are healthier ways of doing things, but I do totally understand the ethical and the moral issues that go around vegetarian and vegan opinions. I do understand that, and like you, Ben, I make a big effort to try and source my foods from sustainable sustainable farming methods with animals that are treated kindly. And I do my best, and that's I think as meat eaters, that's all we can do is is do our best.
See, for me, this has been quite an interesting conversation of late because this has come up on my Facebook page quite a bit. Now,
Mm.
whenever my Facebook page gets a lot of attention, it gradually, just by sheer default, attracts different groups of people to comment on it. And I made a post, I can't remember now, but it was about dairy. We'd released our new product as part of Awesome Supplements called chocolate powder. And it's basically an additive that you add to milk to make a very good post-workout shake. It basically makes milk complete from a perspective that it has an inferior content of leucine. So research-wise, that's why people have been drinking chocolate milk for a long period of time for recovery, because it's good, but it lacks leucine. Anyway, so we got onto the topic of milk, and someone jumped on saying, you know, you shouldn't drink milk, milk production's evil for cows, you know, it's carcinogenic, it causes cancer, and it started to blow up, and I was like, whoa, hang on. And the thing with what we see on the internet every day is because we view everything from the highlight reel, we're not actually ever being objective enough about the context that any of this is wrapped up in and the actual quote-unquote research is being backed up on this. So there's so many documentaries that are done where they say research has been done to show that dairy causes cancer, and it's like, well, hang on a second. Well, what research? What happened? What happened with tumour growth? What was the rate of metastasis? Like, how did the tumours change? Like, you can't just throw something like that out there. That is a fucking hand grenade, a brutal hand grenade. And when someone jumps onto a Facebook thread and starts saying, oh, what you're eating's causing cancer, like that is a brutal comment. You've got to be ready to really kind of back up that assumption. And my response to that was like, okay, you're quoting all this kind of opinion-led research, but where is this research? Because I get that there is an element of food pharma protecting their interests in food legislation and some things not coming to the forefront. I get that. But when you're talking about cancer, something that's killing people, friends and family, and is becoming a massive problem, if the government knew that dairy was giving people cancer in various different forms, then the government really needs to be doing something about that. You can't let food pharma stand in the way of that. Something has to be done.
And is it actually the dairy that's causing that, or is it how milk, for example, is processed and what is put into the milk, which again leads us back to, we have very different standards here to America. Australia and New Zealand has very high standards as well. It really depends on where in the world it is, and so you do have to look at the research.
I think so. To come back to that point, look, you've got to be, I get everything that happens in nutrition, and it's like when we talk about diets, we have to say, okay, why does this work? It's like, let's ask a straight up question. Why is a plant-based diet better than the diet that most people follow? Well, the reason that is because people end up ingesting a ton of plant food. Green vegetables, every vegetables, fruits, like they go from what is usually a fairly unhealthy standard diet. They start eating loads of plants and hey presto, they get a ton healthier. That is going to happen. But there's no reason why we can't take that approach and for there to be some animal protein within that and it still be just as healthy, if not more healthy. And there's so many arguments that are placed against a singular mechanism in the body. So, for example, people cite various roles of protein in the body. For example, people cite problems with protein in bone health, but actually when you look at the wider data, people that have a low protein diet do not support bone health going into older age. So protein is essential in bone health, despite the fact that you might have isolated one mechanism that shows a slight kind of negative. But when you look at all the mechanisms in their total effect on the body, then it is beneficial. So we have to look at context. I am a massive fan of everyone eating an absolute boatload of fruit and vegetables. Now, I haven't played around with this yet, but I've just gone and bought out, I've been and bought a NutriBullet, because I went over to Dubai and there was loads of juice bars. And I started to just drink more of the green juices. Now, I don't really want to drink smoothies and juices that are loaded with lots of sugar because it is an easy way to consume unnecessary calories. But I really value juices and smoothies that can be lower carb because I can get a lot of nutrition and maybe only 50, 100, 150 calories. I'm cool with that. So if I can blend up cucumbers, spinach, lime, mint, broccoli, all that kind of stuff, then I'm going to do that, because if I can consume 12 portions of fruit and vegetable a day instead of 6, I know I'm going to be healthier. It's a no-brainer. So I'm very pro plant-based food and having a lot in the diet, but I'm not adverse to having plenty of animal proteins in that diet as well, because ultimately, when you have balance, trust me, all these things do balance itself out. It's like we have cancerous cells in our body all the time. It is a process that the body has, but it's the environment that allows that cancer to grow. So if you're eating tons of fruits and vegetables, which provide antioxidants, phytonutrients, cofactors, it helps the environment in your body stay healthy by giving the body its own ability to fight what it needs to fight and generally clean up the body and detoxify certain things.
I agree. Look, one of our NutriBullets are amazing. We've got one here, and particularly with my IBS, I can't eat a lot of vegetables, and you have lots of fibrous veggies and things like that. So I often have a NutriBullet, and I just put in some spinach and a lemon with some ice, and add a little bit of stevia as well, because otherwise it's a bit bitter. But that's actually quite refreshing, and it's quite tasty. So that's a good one. What else was I going to say? It will come back to me.
Well, while it comes back to you, let's have a look at some of the other stuff. Okay. So what tends to happen is that the more extreme a diet gets, the more extreme the claims get. because
that was it. I remember.
People become so isolated about what they've bought into, it starts to cure just incredible things apparently, and things become advocates, and it just kind of extrapolates. So let's look at this. Any diet or change will elicit a cascade of other positive effects. So if I put Rachel on a diet and she starts eating 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day, where previously she was eating 2, that's going to be a positive lifestyle change. And what's probably going to happen as a result of that change is she will then start to move a bit better. She'll then start to feel a bit better. She'll then start to sleep a bit better. And all of these things just change. She gets inspired. And that's why I like to show people the power of a real food diet, because you get motivated by how fucking good you feel. Like, people ask me quite often, oh Ben, when you cheat on your diet, what do you choose to cheat on? I'm like, I'm not the guy that's going to go to Burger King and have, a pig out on a burger. Like, I'm not a fucking child. Like, I don't look forward to that kind of food. Like, I have a well-defined, normal, natural palate. Like, if I want a great, amazing plate of food that's outside of the norm of my diet, well, I'll go and have like a beautiful steak at a restaurant, or go and have fish and chips by the pier or whatever. Like, I don't crave this kind of junk food taste or these hyper sweet tastes. And maybe my language of I'm not a child was a little bit aggressive, but this people seeking this kind of junk food for sheer enjoyment, like it's a part of their life that they're kind of trying to grab onto, like, oh, I can't wait to have a McDonald's. I'm like, seriously? You can't wait to have a McDonald's? Why don't you just go down to a pub and have a nice, proper, like Angus Scottish beef aged burger with some Monterey Jack cheese on top and, proper chips? Like, I would much rather pay £14 for that rather than £6-7 for a McDonald's. Like,
I agree. Like, when we were in Dubai, like, I introduced Ben to burrata cheese. And for those people who don't know, burrata is like mozzarella, but it's actually made with cream, and it is unbelievable. It is so good. It's with like tomato and like just fresh cut tomato and basil. So good. Anyway, on that note, like, I would much prefer to have, a big chunk of burrata rather than, I don't know, like Macca's or something.
Yeah, I just don't get it. So, back to my point, we create an initial environment, people get inspired by food, and good stuff happens. Now, as a result of that, the diet is and isn't the causative factor of that. The causative factor as a whole is that someone has changed all areas of their lifestyle. Rachel starts eating fruits and vegetables, she starts going to bed on time, she starts de-stressing, she starts exercising, everything changes. So the answer, yes and no, was a plant-based diet. So what I'm referencing is that people start to claim that, these diets re-regulate your hormone function, and they start to do great things. So part of it was the diet, but part of it, and when we talk about hormones, we have to talk about sleep and stress. The biggest thing that will affect your your hormones is sleep and stress. If you don't sleep properly, your cortisol levels are way up. Your natural sex hormones will then be down, or at least be out of balance because of the high cortisol. All of these things change as a result of the environment, and stress is an absolute brutal area of managing healthy hormones. So I'm not going to say that, or I'm not going to allow the claim of a plant-based diet is good for hormonal health. It will be, because it's got so much fruit and vegetable, but for me, the environment that we create around a healthy diet is equally conductive as a change to re-regulating or balancing our hormonal status.
I really don't have anything to add to that.
I thought you had another comment that you wanted to chip in
on. I did, but it was a little bit off center. It was about it was actually about IBS and people being vegan, vegetarian with IBS, because this is something that I've also come across a lot recently as well, where again with this trend of vegan and vegetarianism, we've had a lot of clients come through Chase Life who have been vegan or vegetarian, and they've usually been converted by the time they've worked with me for a couple of weeks, but they have digestive issues, yet they're still attached to that identity of being vegan. Now, you're living day to day in pain, and you've got bloating, you've got digestive issues, whatever it is, because you're sticking to this diet that is actually not working for you, yet the moral aspect of it far outweighs the actual benefit of perhaps introducing some meat into your diet and eating more of a perhaps even a vegetarian based diet. So I guess that was what I wanted to say back when we were talking about that. So
because it's interesting because we always see fibre as a good thing, and fibre is a good thing, but for some people fibre can be an absolute pain in the arse,
literally, so to speak. So oh, absolutely. And it unfortunately, you know, this is where a lot of GPs and naturopaths are very behind when it comes to IBS. And yes, fibre is important in people's diet, and for some people it can fix their problem. If you've got somebody who's constipated, then yes, sometimes, you know, if they've got a terrible diet, then you introduce some fibre, some more fibrous veggies, fixes the problem. But it can also make things so much worse. So I'm an example myself. You know, I can have very little fibre in my diet because it actually makes my digestion so much worse. So, you know, I think that there are you have to look at the big picture and not just take things for, you know, as standard. So yeah, fibre is a big problem. And of course, like vegan, vegetarian diets, they're full of FODMAP foods. So, you know, if you have IBS, then one of the first places to start would definitely be removing all FODMAPs from your diet. And you can have a look at that online because it's outside the scope of this question. But
it is. Yeah, I think FODMAPs are a very specific topic that is very individual, and there will be more reactive foods than unreactive foods. And people know my stance on intolerances. Like, if you've got a food intolerance, get it out of your diet. You're going to be healthier for it. Fix the problem as well. Sure. If there's any damage, address that. You know, if someone wants to follow a plant-based diet, awesome, go for it. If it's for ethical and moral reasons, awesome, go for it. What I will not currently support is the fact that it is healthier than a optimized omnivorous diet. So
I second that. I'll second that.
If anyone comes to me and has animal protein in their diet, I'm still going to chuck a ton more fruits and vegetables in there. There's not many people that need to eat more protein or more meat. Quite often at breakfast, people lack a bit of meat or a bit of protein content, but quite often my approach is always to be adding 4, 6, 8 extra portions of fruit and vegetable to a diet. So I'm very pro vegetable matter, but I don't believe that dairy or animal protein is, you know, carcinogenic when it's natural. Now, don't get me wrong, bacon, sausages, that kind of meat, salami, should be limited in the diet. There is very good research to show that too much of that is going to have a negative effect and does have carcinogenic effects, especially in the bowel, prostate cancer, bowel cancer, that kind of stuff. So, you know, when we look at balance and we look at general optimization, great things happen. And, you know, I want everyone to just be objective about nutrition. I know we talk about this a lot on the podcast, but it's very important for you to make sense of things that happen online, because so much happens online on literally a daily basis. You know, you just imagine you follow me, you follow Rachel, you follow 10 other people. If we all make one post on social media that day and you digest all of those posts and they're all 10 different posts, that's quite a lot of information to actually process. Rachel might have talked about mindset, I might have talked about dairy, someone else might have talked about gluten, someone else might have talked about sleep. And actually, you've got to have this kind of, you know, context radar to be able to fit in and analyse this stuff, because we can't just take the highlights, we can't take the show reel, because it doesn't really help us. And if someone says on the internet a plant-based diet is great for hormones, don't just believe that. Kind of ask yourself why. How did that happen? What is the cascade of effect there?
You're so smart today. You're on fire. I've got nothing.
I'm just trying to be concise. I think it's
nothing. I bet, you know what? Just add steak. Vegetarian diet is great. Just add steak.
Do you know what? I say that in my seminars. I talk about the benefits of veganism in my seminars. I'm like, buy a vegan cookbook, learn it, because vegans can do some awesome shit with food, but just add a little meat.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect diet.
I'm actually going to end the podcast there because it's been half an hour and I like the fact that we've just focused on one topic and kind of really rounded out my thought process at the moment. We did have
I
another
haven't even dropped one F-bomb. Seriously, like I've done really well.
I dropped an
podcast.
F-bomb.
Did you? Oh, okay.
I've been.
Oh, well, then we can finish.
I said stop being a fucking child.
Oh, you did, yes.
I've also just said it again.
Okay.
So for anyone that's sensitive to swearing, I've offended you twice. I'm now 100% worse.
I was going to add something in there, but I was like, oh God, no, I'm going to leave my head held high. I'm so bad.
I think this discussion's been good because it's come up a lot on my Facebook page recently.
Yeah.
Just by chance, basically, and it's just been mulling around in my head. Anyway, let's wrap this stuff out. Charlotte, I hope that helped with the question that you wrote in today. Thank you very much for writing in. If you would like your question answered on the podcast, then email bencoomber@gmail.com with the subject line podcast, and we will throw that into the mix. It will be me and Tom doing the Q&A style shows from now on. Charlotte also mentioned my group coaching program, Fat Loss for Life. That has actually just opened, but the doors are closed already. We're sold out, sorry. So keep an eye on the next one. If you go to bodytypenutrition.co.uk or my website, you can find out information about it and leave your name on the waiting list because it generally sells out very quickly. It's the only way to work with me personally with coaching. I'm still coming on my UK tour. I'm touring as of next week. This show's going up on the 11th of May. So I start my tour with Exeter next week. I'm travelling all over the UK. If you haven't got a ticket yet, grab a ticket. One seminar on diet and nutrition, the other seminar on business for personal trainers. You will learn a ton, I promise. And if you want to check out our new product or awesome supplements, you know where to go. Otherwise, Rachel, you've been amazing. Thank you very much. It is a farewell for now, but not forever.
It's always see you later. Like a good friend of mine in Australia once said to me, oh, it's never goodbye, it's always see you later. So, see you later.
Exactly. And me and Rachel are friends, so we always talk here and there across the interwebs. But for now, Rachel will take a break from the show. And Rachel, we should probably get you back in like a year. You know, we'll just chat some stuff.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's chat in a couple of months, year or so.
We are done. That is episode 258 out. Sorry about the first half of the show and the sound being a bit worse. I forgot to plug in my microphone, so it's completely my fault. But I'm not recording the podcast again because I've got stuff to do. Rachel's got stuff to do. The content's already in the bag. Otherwise, I will see you next week on podcast 259 and have an awesome day. Goodbye. And Rachel,
ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 258.